Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Boost E-invoice Knowledge webinar. My name is Wei Yi, and I'll be your MC for this webinar. It's a pleasure to have all of you here as we dive into the knowledge of E-invoice. Today, we are honored to have Mr. Simon Ngan as our speaker. Mr. Ngan is the tax manager at KS Hu & Co. and brings with him over 15 years of experience in accounting, auditing, and taxation. With his expertise, he will guide us through everything we need to know about e-invoice. During today's session, Mr. Ngan will cover a range of key topics that will boost your e-invoice knowledge. Also, at the end of the webinar, Vivian, my colleague, will be introducing the Dynamo e-invoice module. Be sure to stay tuned for this exciting introduction. The slides from today's presentation will be shared after the webinar. If you have any question during the session, feel free to type your question in the chat box. We will answer accordingly, or you can click on the Q&A icon located on your control bar and submit your question. We look forward to a productive session, and I'm sure you'll leave a valuable insight. Without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Simon Ngan.
Everyone, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Okay. First of all, I want to thank eHub to invite me to give you a speech regarding this e-invoice overview or the understanding what is the e-invoice and how to implement e-invoice in your company. Okay. And then thank you all for coming to join us to spend your time to listen what is about the e-invoice and also the smart accounting, how they handle the e-invoice issue. Okay. Our seminar, I think around three hours. My sharing is almost 2 hours. So let's just begin begin our seminar on my session on what understanding what is the e-invoice. I sharing my slide to you all. Everyone can hear me, right? If you have any question, you can raise up in the Q&A session. Okay, the one the Q&A box. Correct. Can you see the slide, everyone? All right. Thank you. So let me start sharing my slide. All right. So basically today's seminar is we try to share with you what is the e-invoice, and from the beginning understanding what's the e-invoice, how e-invoice work, e-invoice format, and all those specific transaction, how to handling the e-invoice on the specific transaction. Okay. So before I start, let me share with you what is my background. I'm a tax manager of KSU Taxation Services in Jabahat. I worked in this company more than 15 years in audit and account and tax department. Okay. Basically, I handle is regarding tax audit cases, SST cases, and previously I also handling the GST cases. Now become e-invoice, another new topic. So I also handling the e-invoice session. Okay. I serve as a SST consultant and assist all the company in handling the SST issue. And also the coming soon is e-invoice implementation. All right. So before I start, I want to let you know that today's seminar actually we focus on those we share with you the latest e-invoice guide based on the income tax portal. So the latest version will be e-invoice guideline version 3.2 and specific guideline 3.0. One is dated on 30th July 2024. If you have attending any e-invoice seminar before, which is early than this date, maybe you have missed out some update guideline. So I will highlight here to let you know what is the latest updated guideline in these two guides. Okay, so if you so just let you know, this is today our sharing. So if you want to know more about how to handle your company e-invoice, you might need to advise some expert and or tax agents to help you to do the implementation for the further. Okay. So let us begin the course outline today. First, we will straight up to the 6th session. The first session is regarding the introduction of the e-invoice. So we're talking about what is e-invoice benefit. So scenario e-invoice implementation timeline, and the second part go to the e-invoice workflow, my invoice portal, and then the third part go to the e-invoice specific transaction. Fourth will be transition period, and fifth to be penalty and offense. And lastly will be e-invoice implementation guideline. We'll share with you how on this sixth session. Okay. So as you know that for this e-invoice, actually income tax they come up two specific guideline, two important guideline for you to know. This is the summary of the version of e-invoice guideline. As you know, e-invoice starting version 1.0 until today is such version 3.2. So you can see that there's a updated publication date. So every time when income tax want to change, update their guide, they will update to the portal to let you know what is the updated version. So for your information, you need to if you want to know the update, you must always go to the income tax guideline to have a look what is the changes of the guide. All right, this is the e-invoice guideline. They already come out to the version 3.2. So there's another one, e-invoice specific guideline. So also from version 1.0 until today is version 3.0. The latest is the 30th July 2024. So today we will mostly talk about this latest two guidelines. What's the updated on these two guidelines? And one more, actually, income tax sharing out another version of an e-invoice illustration guideline. This guideline is the latest, just announced it, just published in the income tax portal on 1st September 2024. Now I already have a second version. Second version is on 11 of September 2024, just last week. Okay. So this illustrative guideline, actually, they will give you more easier for you to understand. They have a picture for you to show you what is the transition between the how to handling the invoice. So if your guide, if your guide want to see more something like a photo to easier understand, then you can download this guide to have a look. So the previous one is more on the word, more on many words. So you need to go read one by one more in detail. This one's more on the photo and the transaction. They will list, they will give out example how you're to handling those invoice. Okay, so this is a new one. All right. So first, so let's start for the first session, introduction of the e-invoice. So what is e-invoice? Actually, as you know that e-invoice in Malaysia now already start the e-invoice. First for the first one, you already start the e-invoice. Some of the company already start issuing the e-invoice. Actually, what's e-invoice? What is the difference between the e-invoice and the currently e-invoice they are using? Okay. So you know the e-invoice, actually, that is the four criteria that you need to have fulfill for this e-invoice. First, e-invoice is something a digital representative of transaction between the supplier and the buyer. Okay, so and it contain the second one, it has contain some essential information. Income tax actually has set up the information for you to be filled in to the e-invoice. So you have to fulfill the income tax requirement. And the third one, invoice must be validated and approved by the IRB, income tax. So that is very important. Previously, when you issue invoice to your customer, when you receive invoice from your supplier, you're just sharing the invoice, like when you open for your system, then you share, you just send by post, send by hand, just send to them without any validated and approved by the income tax. Now, e-invoice, another further, you need to important that every invoice that you send, before you send to your customer, you must validate by the income tax before you send. Then consider is approved e-invoice. If you're sending a normal invoice, this is just a normal invoice, it's not an approved e-invoice by the income tax. Okay? So this e-invoice actually applicable for both local and foreign transaction. Okay, so even though you have said your customer is a foreign, is a Malaysian, you need to fulfill the e-invoice. If your customer is a foreigner, like overseas company, you also need to fulfill to issue an invoice. And then same, if your supplier is a local, you will receive invoice. How about if your supplier is a foreigner, foreign company, how to manage the invoice? So this one we will talk in later. Okay. So invoice is very important thing you need to know. When customer go your shop to buy something, or if customer come to company buy something, you need to issue invoice and validate by income tax, then only we consider is a e-invoice. Okay, right. So what's the format of e-invoice? Actually, if you look at the currently practice, invoice can be many format like PDF, like documentary, like JPG, photo, like invoice print out from the printer, like you're sending the email to your customer. That is the current invoice format. But actually, for e-invoice, it's not this format. All will be e-invoice only has two formats, either SML or either JSON, JSON. These two invoice format is only recognized by income tax. That's two invoice. Why they have invoice in these two format? Because these two format is for them to read your e-invoice data in their system. So for income tax, they only recognize these two of e-invoice format. Okay, so how is these two invoice look like? Okay, actually, when you go to the income tax guide, SML format is something like this. Okay, something like this. Okay, JSON format is something like this. You can see that all this format is only readable by the system, the computer IT. But if you want to download and have a look, you couldn't understand what actually what is the content of this one. Okay, so when you want to download this invoice, they will come to either these two format. But if you think how we going to read this e-invoice if let's say e-invoice already in these two format? But don't worry, actually this format is for only for the system for read your data. But if you want to share your e-invoice to your customer, you can always print to PDF format and share to your customer. All right. So this is the two e-invoice format when you download from the My Invoice portal. Okay, for your understand. Right. So actually, what's the benefit of e-invoice? Benefit actually e-invoice first. If the e-invoice when they go to the digital representative, first thing they can reduce the manual effort and human error. How to say reduce the manual effort? When your customer, when your supplier, they issue invoice to you, you can I think that now the system can auto detect the invoice and then insert to your computer, and then you can reduce the error, human error. Right? When sometimes you think the human account clerk may key in the invoice on the wrong figure because the figure maybe 100, the king one more zero become 1,000. So all this when the invoice become the digital, you can insert the invoice from the supplier automatically to your system if your system is compliant. So this can reduce your human error, the manual effort. Then you save cost. Okay. And the second thing, facilitate the efficiency of tax return filing. Okay. So when e-invoice coming, every invoice will be submitted to income tax to get approval. So income tax already have your data. So when income tax already have your data, when you submit your income tax, in future, when you submit income tax return, your sales figure, your purchase figure, your expenses figure might be auto-generated in the tax filing return, including the personal. Let's say your personal, when you want to submit your personal Form B or Form BE, if you're all fulfilling the e-invoice, so when you next time want to submit the income tax, uh, the sales figure and your P&L figure might auto-generate in the tax return filing, including your relief, personal relief. Because when you claim, if you want to claim a personal relief, you must have a e-invoice in order to claim the personal relief. Okay, so the third one, streamline the operation. So you know that, let's say, just now I say, you reduce the human error and the manual effort. So this one can save your cost because everything is digitalized, okay, digitalized. And digitalized and your financial reporting is same. When you submit your income, submit your tax to the income tax, everything will be online on time, and then you can uh, everything will be follow whatever the e-invoice format already data in the income tax system. So this is the benefit of the e-invoice, right? So now, who need to compliant for the e-invoice actually? According to a guide, they mentioned all person. All person here is referring to all individual and the legal entity in Malaysia. So if you are you have to if you're doing commercial business, if you're running a business, you need to fulfill the compliance with the invoice. So this 14 type of people, you need to have a compliance with the invoice. So including the association company, even though some of the association, they say, I am not the income making company, I am non-profit making company. So association, do I still to comply with the invoice? Yes, you still need to comply with the invoice. Body a person including like sole provider, partnership, branches, business trust, cooperative society, corporation like Senjang Berhad, league, LLP, partnership, property trust fund, property trust, real estate investment trust, representative, all this body you need to fulfill and compliant with the invoice. Okay, so e-invoice transaction, you might know that they have normally they will split to three types: B2B, B2C, and P2G. B2B referring to business to business. Your company is doing business. You're selling to someone, they're also doing a business. We consider it's B2B. B2C is something you're doing business, but your customer may not doing business. It's like an individual, like your personal. When your personal, you like example, your personal go to a supermarket to buy something for your personal use, or you go to F&B shop to have a lunch or dinner. This one considered is a consumer. So this is considered B2C. B2G is referring to your customer is the government. So when dealing during transaction with the customer, your customer is the government. So you also need to fulfill the e-invoice criteria. So e-invoice actually cover all the above transaction: B2B, B2C, B2G. So yeah, okay. So what is the importance of e-invoice? Why is e-invoice is so important? Actually, e-invoice is something to prove your income and something to prove your expenses. Okay, so when you have doing a business, you have an invoice, you have the sales to third party, you must issue invoice in order to recognize your income in your P&L and income in your tax purposes. So this is something document to prove that you have this income in your company. So same like proof of expenses is a document to recognize the expenses on purchase and spending. So next time when you have want to have a tax, you want to have these expenses of purchase to enjoy a tax deduction, you must know that you must have a e-invoice. If you do not have an e-invoice, so income tax might not allow you to claim for tax deduction. So that's very important. Remember, e-invoice is something to prove your income and document to prove your expenses. Right? So e-invoice actually has come up four type of invoice. In this e-invoice, there's four type of e-invoice. First is the invoice. Invoice referring to the e-invoice. Okay. So the second one will be debit note, and this should be credit note. Okay, credit note, debit note, and refund note. This should be credit note. Sorry for the error. So credit note is something to reduce the previous invoice transaction. let's say you have a sales return, sales discount, you want to reduce your previous e-invoice amount, you must issue a credit note. Okay. So the use of the credit note is to reduce the e-invoice amount, but does not involve return of money. Important, huh? The wording here is does not involve return of money. Okay. So debit note is something you want to increase the previous issue invoice amount. Like maybe last time you issue invoice, you miss out the one item or miss out the amount is wrong. Supposedly is 100, you key in only 90 ringgit. So you want to increase further another 10 ringgit. So you need to issue debit note on the related to the previous e-invoice. So now e-invoice has one new document that you might need to understand how to use. This is called refund note. Okay, refund note is something like when you want to refund the payment to your customer, you need to issue a refund note. Refund note actually same using actually same as a debit credit note. Both are reducing the previous e-invoice amount. But you know, just now I said credit note is referring to reduction of e-invoice does not involve return of money. But refund note is the another way around. So refund note is the reduction of invoice involve return of money. So next time you want to, you need to think whether you need to issue refund note. If you refund money to your customer, you need to issue refund note. But if just reduction of the amount without refund money to your customer, then you issue credit note. Okay, so I give you an example. So this too is an example of how to differentiate between the credit note and the refund note. Example here, this Mr. Ling. Mr. Ling is sold 200 office chair and issue e-invoice with 2,000 to ABC Sdn Bhd. So now ABC Sdn Bhd after receive the chair, they've checked at the stock and they found that unit of chair is faulty and returned to Mr. Ling. So what Mr. Ling need to do? So Mr. Ling need to issue a credit note to ABC Sdn Bhd for the goods return. So you see here, Mr. Lim issue invoice to ABC, but ABC haven't paid to Mr. Lim yet. So when ABC return the goods to Mr. Lim just need to issue credit note. So how about what's the different refund note? Refund note is something like here. Example here, you see Mr. Lim, same, sold 200 office chair and issue invoice to ABC. But ABC after receive the good, ABC already paid 2,000 to Mr. Ling. They pay full amount to Mr. Ling. After this, Mr. Ling checked the stock and they found that 8 unit of chair is faulty and then return to Mr. Ling. Return to Mr. Ling. So what Mr. Ling need to do? Because ABC Sdn Bhd request Mr. Ling to refund the money. So Mr. Ling need to reissue a refund note to ABC. It's not a CN here. Here will be refund note because Mr. Lin want to refund the money to ABC Sdn Bhd. So that is the difference between the credit note and how to use the refund note. So refund note also only applicable when you want to refund money to your customer. But if let's say you want to refund something like refundable deposit to your customer, you are not required to issue any refund note because refundable deposit, when you receive the refundable deposit at that time, you also not required to issue e-invoice. So refund note only apply when first you already issue e-invoice to your customer. Then subsequently, when you return money to your customer, then you need to issue refund note. So I hope you to understand what is the difference between credit note and refund note. Right? So when it comes to e-invoice, actually, they have come up another two type of e-invoice. We call that is a self-bill e-invoice and the consolidated e-invoice. This one I will talk in later in more detail when we go to the section 3, which is specific transaction. So self-bill is something like issue on behalf. Consolidated is something like you combine all the total normal invoice in issue or console. So this one I will talk later when we come to the transition, specific transition, how to handle these two types of e-invoice. All right. Okay. So now we come to the session when the time your company to need to implement your e-invoice in your company. So first of all, you need to, there's a first phase, three phase, phase one, phase two, and phase three. For the phase one customer, company, taxpayer, you already started because if your company sells more than 100 million, actually you'll be started on 1st August 2024, which is last month. Last month you already started. But if your company sales turnover is between 25 million to 100 million, so you'll be starting on next year, 1st January 2025. So if your company turnover is less than 25 million, so we'll be starting on 1st July 2022. So how to determine where this sales is referring to which financial year revenue? Actually, you need to refer to YA 2022 turnover and revenue. Okay, so how we going to refer? Example, this is the example to show you. If let's say your company have audited financial statement, you have audited report on 2022. So you go back and see your auditor report. What is your total turnover in the company? Okay. If your company, if you are sole proprietor or your partnership or your LP, normally you don't have an auditor report. So how to determine? You go back to your YA 2022 tax return form and see what is the total revenue you fill up in your tax return form. You follow that one. Okay. So in the event that if let's say company they change financial year in 2022. Okay, change financial year means that previously is 12 months, but in 2022 account actually is more than 12-month account. So this revenue, how to justify this revenue for the 2024? Are they follow the auditor report? No, the one you can based on the pro rate amount to justify what is the total revenue. Example here, example here. So your previous financial year is 1st July 2021 to 30th June 2022. But after this, your company decide to change financial year to December 2022. So now in your YA 2022 account is 18 months account. So 18 months account, when you fill up, when you prepare your auditor report, the sales amount is 30 million and you submit your income tax return also 30 million. So 30 million, when you look at the implementation guideline, you supposedly on the phase two, 1st January, right? But actually you can prorate it to 12 months because your accounting period is more than 12 months. You can prorate to 12 months. After prorate, your sales will be 20 million. So based on this, your implementation time will go to the 1st July 2020, 1st July 2025. Okay. So for those new business, you start your financial year and the first financial year is 2023 onward. So this means when you submit your income tax return is based on 2023 onward. So all you'll be starting e-invoice from 1st July, regardless whether your sales is more than 100 million, more than 20 million, 25 million, all will be fall under 1st July 2025. Okay, so this is how to determine your revenue when you want to know when your company want to start implementing the e-invoice. So you need to refer back to your revenue and you start doing e-invoice by yourself. So there's no letter from income tax, no document from income tax say that you need to start from this date. Okay, so you need to go back to see your audited account, income tax return to know when you're going to start you implement your e-invoice by yourself. Okay, right. So besides this time, I say everyone have to, all individual have to, there's 14 type, right? Have to implement the e-invoice, right? Supplier. But actually, I referring to income tax, there is some person actually that exempted from issuing invoice. They are not required to issue invoice to you, including issuing shall bill. Meaning when you receive, when you have, when you pay something to this kind of this type of person, you might not, you might not need to issue invoice, shall bill invoice to yourself. You can just obtain the receipt invoice from the third part, from this group of people, and then this is a supporting document for you to claim for the tax deduction. So this type of person, including the, I think all you know, this is more on the local authority, government side. So if let's say in future, when you pay coming soon, when you pay like quick land assessment to the Majlis, there's no invoice for you. They will not issue invoice to you. You can just keep the receipt to support this is your company expenses. Okay. Okay. But referring to the new guy in the, there's come out there's add up another two of people. First is individual who is not conducting business. Okay, when this individual like us, if you're not doing a company, if you do not have a company, you're submitting a form BE, you're consider is not doing business, you're not required to issue invoice to party. Example, when you're individual, you want to sell your car to the car seller, car dealer, you're not required to issue invoice to them because you are individual, you're not conducting a business. Okay. The second one is taxpayer with the annual turnover or revenue less than 150,000. So I think now this one you know because recently income tax, a lot of people complaining that SME like taxpayer less than 150, are they exempted or not? Can they exempted? So after this income tax decide, this group of people they can exempted from issuing invoice to you. If let's say you are doing business, you go back to see your annual tax return, it's less than 150,000. So you can exempt that, not doing the invoice. But how to justify this taxpayer is less than 150? We need to wait for further guide because sometimes you can say that your company doing business, maybe this year your sales is less than 150. But how about the next year when your sales suddenly boosts up to more than 150? When you need to start invoice. So this one we need to wait further guide how this group of people to implement to start monitor for themselves. Okay. So you see here, I highlight here, if let's say this group of people, they issue any invoice bill to you, you can use it as a proof of expenses. It's a document to prove for expenses of tax purpose. But remember, I mentioned, actually, when you're doing this, when you're buying something from the individual and you pay something to individual, they are not doing a business. You when later I talk on the specific guy, you know that this type of individual, as a company, you need to issue a self-bill invoice. Okay, this one I will talk later when it comes to specific transaction. So that's why I see here, all these people, they are not issue invoice to you. You're also not required to issue self-bill, but except individual. Individual, when you pay to them, you need to issue self-bill. We talk later. Okay, talk about it later. Okay, so this is the example given by income tax in the latest version of the guide. You can see this. Tina purchased 50 balls of kueh from Majid Rosa for her company meeting. So this Majid Rosa is a small SME. Okay. So Tina requests e-invoice for Majid Rosa at the point of sales. So because Tina want to claim for tax deduction, of course, they want to request for e-invoice for Majid Rosa. But Majid Rosa said, my sales is below 150,000. So I'm not required, I'm exempted from e-invoice. So Majid Rosa will not issue invoice to Tina. And Tina can get the invoice, normal invoice or receipt from the Majid Rosa to claim for the tax deduction. So Tina also not required to do self-bill invoice. So currently it's not required. but we don't know whether in later on what is the any dialect or not. So this is the latest example given by the income tax in the illustration, the guide that just now I showed to you. This is one example. When you download the guide, you can see a lot of the guide will be like photo to show you what's the transaction for you to easily understand. This is one of the guide. All right. So, and beside those person is exempted, there's also some transaction company is exempted from issuing invoice. So when we talk about this transaction, it means that when your company has paid out this transaction, you're not required to have e-invoice to as a supporting. You're also not required to issue a self-bill e-invoice to have a supporting. So example, employment income. Okay, your company pay salary to your staff, pay the salary to your director. You're not required to issue self-bill for your staff, and your staff also will not issue e-invoice to you. So how to justify your employment income is a supporting, everything will be referring to the amount that you submitted according to your Form E and Form EA. So remember, next time when you submit your Form BE and EA, measure the total employment income, you submit all accordingly. So income tax may based on this Form E and EA to know that what is the amount of your employment income, employment salary in your company. Okay, including your local staff and foreign staff. Okay, pension not required, alimony not required, distribution of dividend in specific circumstances. Here referring to the when you issue a dividend, normally companies they issue dividend is based on the single tier dividend. This is called tax exempted dividend. So when company issue a single tier tax exempted dividend to the shareholder, you are not you also not required to issue invoice. Zakat not required. Contract value of buying a security not required. Disposal of share of company incorporated or in or outside Malaysia, not listed in stock exchange. Okay, not required. But here is mentioned, they say except the disposal is company. This means that when you as an individual, you holding a share in the company's neighborhood, when later on you want to dispose your share or transfer share to other party, to other individual, so you consider individual. So you're not required to issue invoice, but except company, LP, and cooperative. Example, now in the Sdn Bhd, the share is held by the Sdn Bhd. So now this Sdn Bhd want to transfer to sell out the share to another person. Maybe this person is individual, this person is another company. So when you transfer the share, you will need to issue invoice because you are company, you are cooperative. Okay, why income tax say you need to? Because you know that actually this year income tax already implement this, we call the capital gain tax. So this capital gain tax is something referring to when the company or LP cooperative, they're selling the company share to third party. And this company share is the company not listed in the stock exchange. So like Sdn Bhd, like Berhad. So remember, individual selling share to another person, whether individual or company, individual sell the share, no invoice. But company, when sell the share, you need to issue invoice. Right? So that is the exemption for implementation of the e-invoice. All right. So after we finish, that's the first session that I will share to you. What is the introduction, how this e-invoice transaction is look like. Okay. So the next session we're going to touch on is the e-invoice workflow. So what is the e-invoice workflow? Workflow is something like what is the e-invoice process? You need to understand. Okay. So remember e-invoice, they have six step. You need to remember these six transition workflow. First is creation and submission your invoice. Mean you can create and submit your invoice to the income tax. Okay. Creation of invoice can be from your software, can be from API. Okay. From my invoice. So after this, after you submit, you will send to income tax. Income tax will validate your invoice to see whether you fill out all the field accordingly or not, whether it's something like a mistake or not. If let's say if there's some data is not matched with the income tax record, they can return to you, consider this reject your submission. So first create submit invoice and then send to the income tax to get validation. So now you may ask, how long income tax going to validate the invoice? Because every day, every minute in Malaysia, you know how many company will issue invoice now. Okay, so how long actually income tax going to validate all those invoice when you submit to income tax? Actually, their system already test run many times. So income tax say they will validate your invoice within 2 seconds. So actually very fast. Because I also have try the submission of e-invoice using the My Invoice portal. Actually, it's very fast. Once my information you fill in correctly and I click submit, now in 2 seconds only I can receive my invoice. Okay, so this is how fast the income tax promise to you. They will validate the invoice within 2 seconds. So after validate the invoice, then they will notify both party, notify to buyer and notify to supplier, yourself and your customer. Okay, so this notification, I think not all the notification that we send to you lah. Okay, but some when you, because that's why when you if your email receive a certain notice that you have received one e-invoice from third party, you can always go to check. They will send to both party. Then after that, the supplier, your company, when you issue invoice, you can share the invoice to your customer, share in PDF copy. Of course, when you download, you'll be XML or JSON, but don't download the XML or JSON to file to your customer because your customer also not understand what is the file. Okay, so please, you can print out the e-invoice in the PDF format and send to your customer. Okay, so now the important thing, there's one more thing you need to know: rejection and cancellation. Okay, once the e-invoice is validated and you share to your customer, actually both party, customer, yourself and your customer have 72 hours to reject and cancel the invoice within this 72 hours. This 72 hours is including weekday and weekend. So even though you issue invoice in Friday, Saturday and Sunday also consider one day. So as long as you cancel or reject within 72 hours and you giving a valid reason, so the invoice can be canceled anytime within these 72 hours. But after the 72 hours, if no one to cancel, no one to reject this invoice, they will become the valid invoice in your system. So how to know that you have this kind your company, your supplier issue invoice to you in this period or not? Actually, you can go to the My Invoice portal to have a summary of the invoice have been issued to you and summary of the invoice that have been issued out to your customer. So everything can get from the My Invoice portal. But later I will talk about the more detail in My Invoice portal. I think every company you should go to set up your My Invoice portal. If you not get comments, you go to set up first because it's very important. Because when your supplier maybe in the phase one, they already start issue invoice to you. You can go to the My Invoice portal to look at who have been issued invoice to your company, even though your company haven't started. So you can have a summary listing from the My Invoice portal. Later I show you how to check. Okay, so this is the sixth flow. Remember, validation is very important. Validate and the rejection is not important. So I will talk about this 72-hour rules later. Okay, so as you know, the e-invoice submission, you can submit your e-invoice using two different portals. One portal is one method is using the My Invoice portal. This My Invoice portal is created by the income tax. Another one is an API, application programming interface. This API is something referring to your accounting software that you're now currently using. You need to check if your accounting software is compliant, like smart accounting, is compliant e-invoice. So you can use a smart accounting software to generate e-invoice and submit to income tax to get validation. So this My Invoice portal is created by income tax, and you're not required to pay any fee. You want to use this My Invoice, you're not required to pay any fee. Okay, as long as you have My Tax, then you can log in to set up, and then you can go in to check the details. Okay. Application, of course, API is something like referring to your software. So you need to pay your software because you need to use the software. So you need to invest, you need to pay the fee because you need to use the software to use to generate and create an invoice to income tax. So you can use either one. Let's say you say, can I use both or not? Some of I use API, some of it I use My Invoice. Can, no problem. There's no rule say that you can use either only one. You can use both also can. Okay, both also can. So this is the workflow. How you see if let's say you create the invoice, and what is the workflow that through the income tax portal and send back to the buyer. Example here is supplier. Supplier is referring to your company. Your company have the option A, option A, issue invoice using My Invoice portal, or issue invoice using API to your customer. Then they will sending the invoice to income tax portal to get validation. Okay. So after this income tax validation, then they will send to you. Okay. Send back to supplier and then notify both. So supplier can share the e-invoice in PDF format and share to the buyer. Okay. When buyer receives the e-invoice from the supplier, okay, so they can start to check whether the content is correct or not. Okay. If the content is wrong as mistake, you can always go to request for the rejection. So once you reject, okay, rejection and cancellation is like this. Buyer can go to the My Invoice portal to reject. Okay, but it's depending on whether the supplier accept your rejection or not. If let's say buyer go to reject, but at the end supplier did not accept your rejection, so then after 72 hours, all this invoice will become valid invoice. No more adjustment can done. Even though buyer request to reject, but because supplier didn't accept, so end up they will become a valid invoice. Okay, so buyer only have a option to reject. Okay, they cannot cancel. Buyer cannot cancel the invoice. Only supplier can cancel the invoice by themselves. All right, with the reason. Okay, this is how the invoice workflow. Okay, so this 72 hours is very important. I just share with you what this 72 hours rule. Rejection and cancellation. Buyer can request to reject of the invoice. Buyer able request rejection within 72 hours. If you receive invoice, they will starting from counting the date when you receive the date of the invoice. So you can click to reject and give a reason. But of course, when you reject, you must give a reason. Okay. So upper when you reject the reason, then you can let your supplier know I already reject your invoice. Okay. So let the supplier to do the cancellation. If the supplier agree with your reason and then they say I can cancel the invoice, then supplier will cancel it and then regenerate again the new invoice. But if supplier did not accept your rejection reason, then supplier supplier forgot to cancel within 72 hours. Then this invoice becomes valid. Okay, so remember, buyer only can reject, they cannot cancel. Only supplier can perform cancellation. Okay, so e-invoice will be automatically accepted after 72 hours. So any subsequent adjustment, let's say after 72 hours, then only you realize this invoice have an error, have a mistake. amount is wrong, amount is maybe higher, or you can do adjustment by issue a credit note, debit note, or refund note. That's all you can do, right? Remember, this 72 hours is very important, including your weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Okay, right. So now we go to the more detail is regarding the My Invoice portal. Just now I say every company you should go to set up your My Invoice portal, because My Invoice portal is very important for you to have a list of e-invoice that have been submitted and list of e-invoice that you received from your supplier. Okay, so you always can go to this portal, and then when you go to this income tax e-invoice portal, you click on the My Invoice portal. There's a two icon that you can click on. First is regarding what is the e-invoice portal, and the second is related to the user guide video. Okay, so when you click on the About e-invoice portal, there's you can see that there's two e-invoice portal for you to choose. First one is a testing portal, sandbox. Another one is a actual. So if let's say your company haven't started e-invoice, you can try to go log into this testing sandbox and test run, test how to issue invoice, test how to cancel invoice, test how to issue shell bill. And this testing portal is just for testing purpose. It's not so you no need to worry they will be sent they'll put in the income tax portal as a income or expense. No worry, this is just for the testing purpose only. Okay, but for the actual, you need to set up. You need to click on this link. When you click on this link, that means that this is your company actual My Invoice portal. When you create any invoice, when you want to, everything will be shown in the actual. Let's say you are the invoice that you have submitted to income tax, or the invoice that you receive, everything future next time when you start, everything will be here. So that's why I encourage, even though your company haven't started e-invoice, you should always go to set up your My Invoice portal early, because maybe now actually your company already received e-invoice from your supplier that is under the first batch, but you didn't realize on that. So you can always go to check in this actual. Okay, so actually income tax is very good also. They know that many people don't know how to use this My Invoice portal. So they come out a video link for you to click on and then to go to learn how to set up the My Invoice portal. So this is the list of the video sharing by the income tax. You can always go in to click one by one and learn yourself how to do the setup, how to issue invoice, how to submit, how to refer. Okay, so everything will be My Invoice portal, invoice income tax My Invoice well set up. So you can go in, if you have time, you go in to learn by yourself. Okay. So when you log into the My Invoice portal, this is will be the home page. You can see the home page here. There's a home, dashboard, document, new document, submission, and user guide. Okay. So this is the home page. So the second dashboard will showing that how many invoice that you have submitted to the income tax, how many invoice that you have received in your My Invoice portal. So they have a summary here. So this is a dashboard. Okay. So this actually this My Invoice is myself. I try to do it in the testing portal. So I try to create one of the testing under my name. So this is I go to try to submit an invoice by myself and then create some e-invoice to see how you look like. So this is a dashboard, a summary for you to understand. Okay. So the second one, document. Document will be something like the invoice that have been submitted and received. There's a list of document. If you can see when you go to document, there's a all submitted and received. You click all, they have all the listing. If you click submitted, only the submitted listing. Received is the submitted listing. So this listing is important for you to trace back whatever they have you done submission in your record. Okay. Whatever the record that you submit using the My Invoice portal or your API, all will be automatically shown in here. Remember, even though you're using API, accounting software to issue invoice, they will be also here. When your supplier issue invoice to you, even though you didn't receive, you also can see the list here. Okay, so if you want to know whether this invoice is valid or cancelled, there's a status here for you to see. Example here, this showing that this invoice is valid. This is cancelled. Okay, so if cancel means that this no more valid lah. Okay, and then you can always go back to this My Invoice portal to download the list of the invoice that you have in your My Invoice portal. But I just want to make you an important message to you. This My Invoice portal, you can only search for 1 month transaction. Okay, so after 1 month, the listing will be automatically missing, so they will not show in the listing. So I will encourage you every month end, you need to go to you go to inside the My Invoice portal to download the summary. Then this summary able for you to check back whether the document is complete or not complete. Okay, so only can do 1 month search. Remember here. So the next document is new document. New document is the order for you to create e-invoice. Okay, you can create e-invoice here, credit note here, debit note here, refund note, sell bill. There's a type of e-invoice for you to create under here. So want to create, you follow the link. So you click what document let's say you want to create invoice, you choose invoice and then version, and then next, follow the step and fill in all the information and then submit. Okay, so once has you submit and approve, you can go to the submission list. This is the submission list where they show that you submit the time on 7th of September. So this is valid. And then you submit on 7th, this is valid. Okay, all right, this is the My Invoice portal. Okay, so after this, if you have time, go take your time, go to set up your company My Invoice portal, and you can go to the testing portal to test how to submit the invoice by yourself. All right. All right. So this is an example of the sample of the e-invoice after you generate using the My Invoice portal. Here, I just give you an example here. You can see this is the supplier detail. This is the buyer. This is the buyer detail, your customer detail. This is your your company detail. So you can see there's one QR code here. It's very important for you to see. If you want to check whether this e-invoice is valid or cancel, you can always open your phone QR, scan this QR code and check whether it's a valid or cancel. Because sometimes your supplier might issue invoice to you, and then supplier share the invoice to you. After this, supplier realize that there's something mistake in the invoice. Supplier, your supplier go to cancel without your knowledge, and then after the cancel, supplier didn't notify you. So you might consider the one, the previous one you received is the correct one, but you didn't realize actually it's a cancel. So you can always go to check whether it has been cancelled or whether it's a valid. Right? How to this is the result after you scan the QR code. They will either show it's valid or cancel. So there's something for you to know. If let's say you worry that whether this invoice is correct, is a valid or not, always go to scan the QR code, see whether it's a correct, is a valid or cancel e-invoice. All right. So after we talk about the My Invoice portal, now the next one is very important for you to understand actually what is the e-invoice format that required by the income tax. What is the important field for you to fill out when you submit your invoice? Okay, as you can see that previous version 2.2, actually they mentioned there's a 55 field for you to fill in. 37 is a mandatory field. 18 is the optional field. But when go to the version 3.2, there's a changes, slightly changes. So mandatory field only have 35, now reduced to another 2 go to the optional field. So today I will share to you what is these changes, what is this optional field, the additional that have moved from mandatory to the optional. So same latest guide also showing is a 55 field, but you need to know only 35 is mandatory, other 20 is optional. You can fill in or we just fill in NA also no issue. Okay, right. So that is the 55 requirement field for the e-invoice. So the one that I highlight to you, the yellow color, is the one, the latest one that moved to the optional. Supplier email and buyer email. Supplier email is your company email. Buyer email is your customer email. Okay. So this email field is now become an optional field, not the compulsory. Okay. So when you become the optional field, so this means that after you issue invoice to your customer, if you did not fill in the email, okay, or your supplier did not fill in the email, you might not receive the notification from both parties. So this, because now already become a optional item. All right. Other thing is still the compulsory, like supplier name, your name, buyer name, your supplier team, registration number, SST number. SSC number, if you have SSC number, you must key in. If you don't have, then just put an A. MSIC code is the code that your business code referring to your income tax return form and your annual company annual return. Business activity is your company business activity. So if you don't know your business activity, if you have an auditor report, you go back to your auditor report to check what is the business activity. You can fill out accordingly. Or if your sole proprietor partnership, go back to your SSM form document. The time you register, they will mention what is your company business activity. Buyer team is the customer team. Team is the income tax number. Buyer SSN number, SST number, the address, contact number. Only this yellow color is the optional now. Okay, e-invoice detail and this version, okay, version you don't need to worry because normally version will be software system will update for you. You always go to the latest version. Okay, e-invoice type is you need to choose either is a e-invoice, credit note, debit note, or refund note. E-invoice code, okay, original invoice reference number, invoice date and time, issue digital, issue currency code, exchange rate. And then frequent of billing and billing period. These two is optional. Okay. So for the date and time, currently in the e-invoice, when you submit e-invoice, you only allow to pay date 3 days. 3 days. This means, let's say today you want to issue invoice, but you want to pay date 1 week or 2 weeks before. When you want to submit, there can be error because system only allow you to pay date 3 days and before. Let's say today is a Wednesday. You only allowed to pay date on Sunday. Okay. If you want to pay date to next week Monday, last week Monday, last week Wednesday, you cannot. When you submit the time, it might become an error. Okay. So remember. So and then the next one, product and services. So product and services, you need to fill in. First thing is a classification code. So classification code is a code, 3-digit code that you need to check by yourself. What is the code when you issue invoice to your customer? This code I will talk later in detail. What is the code given by the income tax for you to choose? Okay, so 29 description of product. What is type of product and service that you sell to your customer? Unit price, test type. So all this one is the mandatory field. Okay, so classification is the new one. Later I will talk to you in more detail. Okay, so product and services only total excluding tax, including tax and total payable amount is a compulsory. Okay, mandatory field. Other yellow color is the optional. You want to fill in or and also can. You don't want to fill in also can. Okay. All right. Beside this, beside the 55 field, there's additional 12 field that you might need to know. This 12 field normally applicable to the import and export transaction. So if your company have doing an import and export transaction, you need to know about this additional 12 field. Okay, so but currently good news for you is all these 12 field is except the custom reference number is mandatory, others now is still optional. Okay, so firstly, I, this custom reference number is something like when you have an import document, you should have an import K1 form to show what is your import document. You need to key in this importation document custom form number. Okay, this is mandatory. Okay, so other thing like this product tariff code authorization, this one country, this one you can leave it blank, no issue. Okay, and then if the transaction is related to the goods shipping to the different recipient, there's also four field for you, but this currently is optional, so it's not required to fill if you let's say you have shipping to other party. Like example, sometimes company might want to send a hamper to your supplier. You might order the hamper from the hamper shop and then ask the hamper shop to send the hamper to your customer. That means the shipping recipient is not your company, is your customer. So it's different. So previously, actually this section, this column, how is important is mandatory. Now income tax say is optional. So you no need to fill in, also can. All right. Okay. Now, as you know that business to consumer is normally dealing with your customer normally is an individual customer. They are not required invoice because they are not doing business. They not require invoice to have a supporting or proof of expenses. Okay, so this consumer, this type of customer, they might have you have two type of. One is Malaysian individual, another one is non-Malaysian individual. How to handle this Malaysian individual and non-Malaysian individual? So when you have e-invoice, want to issue e-invoice to Malaysian individual, you must always ask your customer to provide you either income tax number or either IC number, my card number, or both. Okay? If let's say your customer only provide you IC number, so no problem. The income tax number you can use the general thing number. So let's say your customer is individual, they only provide you the income tax number. So don't worry, the my card number you can just leave it blank, no issue. Okay. So if your customer is a non-Malaysian individual, so there's a two requirement. You have to ask them to provide you either income tax number or TIN number and passport number. So here, TIN number is very important. Okay. So if let's say you only have a non-Malaysian individual customer is giving you the passport number, so you can always use the generating number they given by the income tax to generate the invoice. So later on, I will also give you a list. What is this generating number that can you use when you issue invoice to your customer? Right. Okay. TIN number here is mentioned what you need to know, understand of the income tax number. Okay, so you know that now income tax or call the income tax number call it as a TIN number. So when you heard from someone, they're asking what is your TIN number? TIN number referring to your income tax number. Okay, so example, so you need to know this the latest version. How when you key in the invoice, when you key in submit invoice, remember what is the TIN number that you need to key into the invoice. There's a new version you need to remember. For the individual, previously we have a SG, we have a SOG. Differentiate two type of individual. One is doing business, one is non-doing business. Okay, but actually effective from 2nd January 2023, all the OG and SG automatically change to IG. So remember, no more OG, no more SG. Now everyone personal is start from IG. Okay, so all the number before all the, so for individual, all the number will be remain as the previous one. Just change to IG. Okay. For non-individual like company, like LLP, you can see that company always start from C. Okay. D is referring to the partnership. PT referring to the LLP. F referring to the association. So starting from 2nd January 2023, so all these non-individual income tax TIN number, you need to automatically add on another zero at the end of the existing TIN number. So referring to the previous one, you just need to measure always the last digit will be the zero. Okay, remember. And one more thing, if let's say previously your income tax number first digit is zero, when come to the invoice, when to submit invoice, remember this zero you need to exclude, you need to take out. If not, when you submit the invoice, they might be invalid. So remember, last digit, final digit always come with a zero. Okay, and then remove the initial zero when you come after the TIN preface. Okay, so this is the version of TIN number that you need to remember when you submit your invoice to the income tax. Because if you key in wrongly, at the end, you will notice that invoice it become invalid. Okay, you are unable to go through validation process. All right. So that so if let's say your customer do not have a TIN number, income tax number, how to key in the TIN number? Because TIN number in invoice is very important. So here there's a four type of four TIN number, generating number for you to understand, for you to use during the invoice. First, you look the always come with a 10, E109 and 90 and 10, and E1 90 and 20, 90, 20, 30, 40, 10, 20, 30, 40. How to use this generating? They have a, you need to look at the this criteria. First one, 10 overs referring to Malaysian individual. Remember, 10 only referring to Malaysian individual who only provide you my card ID, IC number. Okay. For 20 is for the non-Malaysian individual. They only provide you passport and my PR ID. Remember the difference, 10 and 20. Okay. So 10 also referring to buyer TIN in consolidated invoice. When your company want to submit consolidated invoice to the income tax, you always use this 10, okay? Generating 10 and with 10. And supplier TIN in the consolidated sell bill invoice, okay? So when you generate a supplier TIN, when you generate a consolidated sell bill invoice to the individual who did not have a TIN number, you can always use this generating 10. Okay, 10. So 20 is a non-Malaysian individual. Okay, and also for the buyer thing for the export transaction. Okay, if let's say you want to issue invoice to your customer, whether it's a company or individual, they are foreign company. So you need, they do not have an income tax number, then you always use this generating 10 with 20. Okay, and also use when you're shipping recipient TIN number. So remember this for the export and non-Malaysian individual. So how about the 30? 30 also for the foreign, but foreign supplier. It's referring to individual supplier who only provide you to buy out and supplier TIN number for importation transaction. So this 30, this generating end up with 30 only apply to sell bill invoice. Remember, 30 only apply to sell bill invoice. This is very important. Please take note. Okay, so if you have want to issue invoice to government body. So government body sometimes they do not have a TIN number. They do not give you a TIN number. So you can always use this TIN number end up with a 40. It's only for the government body. Okay, remember this four type of TIN number is very useful for you to understand when you did not have when you did not have a TIN number from the to issue the e-invoice. Okay. So next one, you talk about the BRN, business registration number. Actually, this business registration number also very important now. As you know that sole proprietor partnership company LP, they always have a OBRN number, like partnership, come up something like this number, partnership and sole proprietor, and then company always come up this and LP. You can see the previous OBRN number, and now you have an alphabet number at the end. You know that actually all the company, including sole proprietor partnership company LP, they already assigned with the new BRN number. This new BRN number is a 12-digit character. Okay, so go back to, if let's say you don't know your new BRN number, you can go back to your auditor report in SSM record to check what is the BRN number. Okay, because it's very important. Previous version of invoice, they mentioned that when you issue invoice, you must always key in the new BRN number, previous version. But latest update in 19 July 2024, income tax said that this BRN number become temporarily disabled during the validation process. This means that you can key any number in this BRN number, including you can key the old BRN number and new BRN number, and it will not affect your validation process. Why the income tax come out with this latest guide? Because during the testing, they found that a lot of the person, when they submit the income tax, when submit the invoice, they found that many people submit error because BIN number did not match with the income tax record. So now income tax decide currently this BIN number is temporarily disabled. You can key in old, you can key in new. But if you ask my opinion, I will always encourage you to key in the new digit because it will become compulsory in the future. Because as you know that now all the income tax, when you submit your income tax forms, return form, the BRN number in the income tax return form all already changed to new BRN number. No more showing old BRN number. So remember, okay, I always encourage use the new BRN number to issue an invoice. Okay, so e-invoice, there's many code, right? So I will just share to you, actually, in this invoice, you might need to know some of the code that will be come up by the income tax. You need to understand what is this code. Okay, so there's 9 type of code in the My Invoice portal. My Invoice portal. Okay, first is the classification code, country code, currency code, e-invoice type, MSIC code, payment mode, state code, test type, unit of measurement. So you can see the number of code here is, this is a number of code for you to choose. For like example, classification, there's 40 type of code. Currently only 45, but in future they might be increased to furthermore. Okay, country code 251, currency 179. So the most code for you to is the unit of measurement. It's almost 2,000 unit of measurement that you need to choose which one. Unit measurement is something like you're selling your product to your customer is 1 unit, 1 meter, or that you need to choose which type of correct code. So later I show you one by one. Okay. So if you want to know more, you can always go to this My Invoice code to have a look. Okay. So classification code is very important. Now, when you issue invoice, you must choose one of the classification for each item that you sell to your customer. Okay, so if you know now currently there's 45 code, I list out for you. This is like example 001, 002. What is that? Let's say example, when your company is a computer selling computer, you're selling computer to your customer, you always need to key in 003. The item you need to choose. Let's say you issue consolidated, you need to choose the item is 004. Okay, so accordingly, this is the code for you to refer. Okay, so why the code is very important? Because as you see, later on, when income tax want to do the matching, they can always referring to your code. Like example, you can see the computer, childcare center. This one is something like a personal relief that you can claim in your personal income tax. So when you go, let's say when you go to spending on the childcare and the computer, the person issue invoice to you, the amount will automatically show in your income tax return form when you submit, before you submit. So that's why it's very important to do the matching. Income tax will use the code to do the matching concept, right? So this is another step, okay? And you have time, you can go to the list. Okay, so this is another 37. This is another up to the 45. Currently, it's only 45. If let's say in this 45 code, you couldn't find any code which is suitable for you, okay? So I just show you what you can choose is this, okay? If let's say your goods that you service that you supply to a customer, you can't find any good in the classification, so you always use others 0 2020 022. Okay, remember you cannot find, then use 022. The list will be updated. Currently only 45 lah. Okay, they might be updated further. You need to wait for the further. Okay. So country code is something like you need to choose country. Let's say you have a transaction with your customer and supplier, which are overseas, you need to choose the country accordingly. Okay. Currency code, if you issue invoice, issue related to the currency, you need to choose the currency code. Okay. E-invoice type is referring to those F type invoice, debit note, credit. You need to choose what type of invoice that you're going to issue. Like example, you want to issue invoice, it will be 01. If you want to issue credit note, 03. Debit note, 02. Sell bill is 11. Okay, this is e-invoice type. Consolidated invoice is same 01 invoice. So MSIC code is something, a 5-digit code that represent your company business activity. If you want to know more about your business activity, MSIC code, always go back to your income tax return form and your company SSM document to match with your currently company MSIC code. Right. The sixth payment mode is something like you receive payment from your customer or either by cash, check, bank transfer. This currently this one is optional, but I just let you know you can choose either one. Okay. State code is the code that you're dealing with the transaction. Okay. So if let's say you issue invoice to Sarawak, then you need to choose the Sarawak. Okay. Or Negeri Sembilan or Malacca. Okay. Tax type is a type like sales tax, service tax, tourism tax, high value good tax, sales tax, and appreciate. If let's say no other tax not applicable, then you choose not applicable. Tax exempted means that if let's say your SST is exempted, then you click exempted tax. Right. Unit of measurement is just now I said is the largest one, is the longer one. You have to almost 2,000 plus code. You need to choose from this code and do set up in your system accordingly. So I think if you let you have many items in your stock, you need to prepare early to do the setting because this code is very long, almost 2,000 plus. Okay, so this is the sample of e-invoice given in the guide, income tax e-invoice guide. So same, this is your company name, this is your supplier name, okay? All right, this is your buyer name. And then always have a QR code for you to scan and check whether it's a valid or non-valid. And e-invoice always have a one unique identification number to justify this is a income tax number. This is the invoice number automatically generated by the invoice system. So every invoice will have a different number. Okay, all right. So this is the format of the sample of invoice. Okay, welcome back all. Okay, so now we continue my e-invoice seminar. So the next session we're going to talk is e-invoice specific transaction. So this specific transaction is something related to the consolidated invoice, how you handling the consolidated invoice, how you handling the sell bill invoice, and something like a disbursement, reimbursement. Okay. So first we talked about the issue on consolidated invoice. What is the consolidated invoice mean? As you know that when you have a transaction with a B2B, B2C, and B2G, so all, as you know, B2C, B2B, normally when you issue invoice to another company, we are running business, of course they will request e-invoice from you because they want to claim as for the tax deduction in their company account. Okay, B2C and B2G. Okay, this is normally the customer. Sometimes they might request e-invoice from you, and sometimes they might not request e-invoice from you. Okay, so for consolidated invoice, as long as your customer, even though it's from business, consumer, and government, they did not request e-invoice from you, so you can submit the e-invoice under the consolidated e-invoice method. Console 1 month, combine 1 month sales, and submit to income tax. But remember, this is 7 industry. They are not allowed you to issue consolidated invoice. So except this 7 industry, they will highlight to you in the next session. Okay, next slide. This 7 industry, you are not allowed to issue consolidated invoice. So this means that when you are doing your business, even though it's to the government, to the consumer, the business, your customer is a business, consumer, or customer, government, you also required to issue e-invoice to them. All right? Remember, except for the 7 industry. So let's talk about the normally common issue in the B2C is dealing with the individual customer. So this individual customer, they come to your shop to buy something. They come to your F&B shop to have a lunch or to have a dinner. And then when they come to your counter want to make payment, so you as a supplier, you need to ask your customer whether they need to issue invoice or they need the invoice or they don't want the invoice. If let's say your customer say they want the invoice, okay, so if your customer want the invoice, so you need to request the information from your customer, then issue invoice, and then share the invoice to your customer. So if let's say your customer do not want have an e-invoice, then you can always give them a normal receipt from a post system or normal invoice to the customer as a record. So after 1 month, then you console all the receipt on a monthly basis and submit the consolidated e-invoice to the income tax. So this is a process flow for the how to submit the consolidated invoice. All right. So there's a scenario here for you. Just give you example. First page, now you start invoice on 1st August 2024. Okay. On 10th of August, your customer come to your shop to buy something, and then you give them the normal receipt. Okay, you give them a normal receipt. If customer say I don't want to invoice, I don't want to invoice, so you give them a normal receipt or normal invoice. Okay, so at the end of 31st August, so you need to combine all the month normal sales receipt without request e-invoice and submit to income tax in 7 days. 7 days is always 7 days from the end of the month, including the weekend, including Saturday and Sunday. So the last day to submit invoice is always 7 of the next month. 7 of next month. Remember, always 7 of the next month. You can issue either one period, but always last day will be 7 of the next month. All right. But you remember, your customer can always come back to you to request e-invoice during the time of transaction. But income tax say they can always they can request, but must be within the same transaction month. This means that if your customer come to your shop to buy on 10th of August, if let's say 10th of August they didn't request e-invoice, then later on in 20th of August they suddenly say I want the e-invoice because I want to claim for that company. So they can always go to your shop to request invoice within the same month. If let's say your customer come back after 31st August, let's say they come on 1st September, 2nd of September, they say, I want the e-invoice, which invoice date is 10th August. You can always reject your customer because you can say that you already processed the consolidated invoice to income tax. You cannot amend the invoice. Right? Remember, customer can always request invoice within the same transaction month. Right. So when you issue a consolidated invoice to your buyer, to your to customer, so the buyer information here you can key, because this buyer can be many people. They can be individual, they can be government. So this buyer name, you just put general public. Okay, the buyer thing, you can always put EI general and end up within the general thing number. So other information, you just put an A because it's not applicable. Because this cash sales invoice, cash sales combine all the individual. You couldn't insert all the individual information in this console. So everything put an A. So the others consolidated invoice transaction information, you can choose the method, either submit either on the format 1, format 2, or format 3. This format 1 is something like you submit, you present your consolidated invoice item by item in the separate line. Format 2, you combine all the sales, cash sales in the one single line. And format 3, if let's say you have branches, you have many branches and under one company, so you can submit consolidated by each branches accordingly. Let's say branches, KL branches 1 console, Selangor branches 1 console, and Ipoh 1 branch console also can. So that doesn't fix you that one company only can submit one console. All right. So you can choose the three format to submit the consolidated invoice. So the first format is when you want to submit in separate single line, that means they want to list out every invoice number. Let's say this invoice doesn't want to request invoice, you want to put one single line, one single line, one single line. So let's mean if let's say during the month you have 100 transactions without invoice, then you need to create 100 separate line. Okay, so I quantity is always use one unit, one quantity, and then just total up the invoice number or invoice amount. You no need to mention what's the item that you sold to your customer. The description just put the invoice number, follow your company invoice number reference. All right, this is the separate line. Okay, so another format, second format is a single line. Single line is you can group all the invoice number in one single line. Here, example, under one line, you can put all the invoice number in one line and then total up all the invoice in one total and submit the consolidated invoice. So you can choose either single or separate. So depends on you. So I think if let's say you have more than 100, you have many transactions during the month, maybe you will choose the method is this separate single line. Okay. So another one is line is, let's say this is branches. You submit one KL branches. There's also another method for you to submit a single line. Let's say you have a running number from 1 to 100. Okay, during the month you have 100 cash sales, 1 to 100, all also not request invoice. So you can put a single line 001 to 100 and then total up. So you no need to mention, like previous one by one, 001, 002, 003. So you can just go to the single line mention 001 to 100 and total up lump sum. But if let's say between this 100 invoice, there's one invoice request invoice. So you might need to do a separate like this. Example, this amount to this range is no invoice. This, you can see the missing number here is the one that requests invoice. So that's why you need to separate out accordingly. So this is format 3. So depends on your accounting software format, you can choose each type of format to submit your consolidated invoice to the income tax. Okay, here is the example to give you. There's 7 types of industry. We are not allowed you to issue consolidated invoice. This means that if your company is doing this type of business, you must issue invoice to each of your customer. Okay, so this is under the section 33.7 E-invoice specific guide. First one, selling of motor vehicle. So if your company is selling motor vehicle, you must issue e-invoice, cannot issue console. Okay, so sale of air ticket private charter. So this one also. Next time when you want to buy air ticket to go overseas, AirAsia, Mars, they will always issue invoice to you. They will always request information for you. So that's why income tax may know who going to buy the car, who going to buy the air ticket, always go to overseas. So income tax already have a record because normally they want to trace where if let's say you always go to overseas, spending overseas and buy a luxury car, then your income tax record submission personal tax is not matching with your spending, your lifestyle. They might check your personal tax. So remember, that's why income tax not allowed this type of industry to issue consolidated invoice. And then the third one, luxury good and jewelry. This one also one of the industry not allowed to issue consolidated invoice. But the detail for this luxury good until now today still waiting income tax to clarify. So in what type of good is considered luxury good? Okay, because income tax now have until today haven't come out the list. What type of goods is considered luxury good and jewelry? Okay, to not allow to issue the consolidated invoice. The fourth one is a construction contractor. If you're doing a construction company business, and if you have construction project with the customer, you must issue invoice. You cannot issue consolidated invoice. The fifth one will be the wholesaler and retailer of construction material. Okay, if you're doing wholesaler and retail of construction material, you need to be careful because now they say if you're doing this type of business, you must issue e-invoice to your customer. Okay, but previously they mentioned that if you're selling your construction material is in any shape, any method, any pieces, so you always need to issue e-invoice to your customer, even though it's individual. But now they come out a specific, like say that only those construction material specific under their ruling fulfill the condition, then only required to issue invoice. If those construction material is not under the standard, you allowed to issue consolidated invoice. This one I will talk later in the next slide. I will show to you. If you're doing the construction, selling a construction material, you have to go back to refer to that standard listing. Okay. The sixth one is the license bidding and gaming. So license bidding and gaming means that let's say something like they want to measure. Let's say the person winning the bidding and gaming, the company given out the money to them, they might issue the invoice. Okay, but now income tax exempt this under further notice because currently this one still on hold first, exempted. The seventh is a payment to agent and dealer. So if your company have made payment to dealer, to agent, to distributor for the commission, incentive, okay, so you are not allowed to issue consolidated e-invoice. You must issue e-invoice, but it's not e-invoice, it's self-billed e-invoice. So this one also we talk in the self-billed invoice. So remember, this 7 type of industry, you are not allowed to issue consolidated invoice. Must be e-invoice to individual, to each customer. All right. So just now I say the wholesaler and retailer of construction material are referring to income tax guide. They say any type of size, nature, and material of initial, temporary, intermediary, finished, whether manufacturer locally or imported, used for the purpose of construction industry, as specified under the fourth schedule. So if let's say the listing, the construction material is listed in this gadgeted gadgeted lembaga fourth schedule, okay, so you must issue invoice. If let's say your construction material is not listed in this guide, so you can exclude it. You still can allow issue a consolidated invoice. So you need to separate out. For those, if you're doing the wholesale and retailer, then you need to go back to check your stock to find out which item is mandatory, which item is allowed to issue. Let's say if your customer come to your shop to buy 10 items, 2 items is under the list, 8 items is not under the list. So when customer come to buy, you must issue invoice to them, even though there's 8 items is not in the list. 2 items, because the 2 items is in the list, so you must issue invoice to your customer. All right, remember, need to go back to check this standard guide. So this is the consolidated invoice. So the next one topic we share with you is what is the meaning of the self-bill invoice. Self-bill invoice, if you still remember the previous GST time, we also have a self-bill tax invoice. Now E-invoice, they have another self-bill invoice. Self-bill means that you issue back invoice to yourself to justify this is your company expenses, this is your company purchases. All right. So what's the difference for E-invoice and self-bill? E-invoice is something like supplier is your company. You're selling good to buyer. Okay. So of course, when you're a buyer, you buy for supplier. Supplier will issue invoice to you. Right now, buyer when go to buy something, supplier will also always issue invoice to you. But when come to the sell bill condition, they're different. They'll come the turnaround. So buyer when go to acquire goods and services from this supplier, because the supplier unable to issue e-invoice to you, so you as a buyer, you need to issue sell bill e-invoice to yourself to record the purchase and spending transaction. Remember, yourself need to issue sell bill to yourself, okay, to record this is a company purchases or spending transaction. All right. So what type of sell bill transaction is allow you to issue a sell bill invoice? There's 8 type of transaction. First, about the payment to agent, dealer, and distributor. When company make payment of commission incentive to the agent dealer, you need to issue sell bill to yourself. Okay. Second one is related to cross-border transaction, goods sold or service rendered by the foreign supplier, importation of goods, imported services. Third is profit distribution. Fourth is an e-commerce transaction. Fifth is the payout to all the betting and gaming winner. Sixth is transaction with the individual. Just now I say the previous who is exempted. One of the item is individual not conducting business, right? But now, if you're doing business with the individual, they are not conducting business, you need to issue back the sell bill to yourself to as a record to justify this is your company expenses. The seventh, interest payment. Interest payment, except these three, except these three is business, when businesses like bank, they charge the interest to a public at large. So banker, they're not allowed, they're not required to issue sell bill, they will issue invoice. Interest payment made by the employee to the employer. Interest payment made by the foreign payer to the Malaysian taxpayer. This one is excluded, not required to have a sell bill. But if let's say you have interest payment to you make interest payment to director, you make interest payment to the related party, you require to issue sell bill to yourself, right? The eight, claim and compensation or benefit payment from insurance company. This one is related to the insurance claim. For those in the insurance industry, they want to have a when the insure when the beneficiary they claim the compensation, so the time they will issue sell bill to justify that this is a compensation paid to the beneficiary. So until today, what's the timing to issue sell bill? Only related to goods and so importation of goods has set a timing. Other they didn't set the timing. This means you can issue the sell bill invoice anytime for other 7 types, except the importation of goods and importation services. You must follow the guide. Will be end of the following transaction month. Okay, but income tax didn't specify the time. doesn't mean that you can issue anytime. Okay, example, let's say this commission is paid out during this month. Normally, I will encourage you, you must issue sell bill during this month. Not wait to until next month, not wait to until next year. Because as you know, when the time you want to issue sell bill, you only the system only allow you to backdate the date to 3 days before. Let's say today you want to submit, you only can backdate 3 days. You cannot backdate to 1 week, backdate to 1 month. Okay, remember? So always encourage, if let's say you make payment to them, you on the same time you you submit the sell bill invoice to your company, right? Only importation of goods and services, they have set a timeline, which is end of the following month. So I give you an example for one. Let's say payment to agent. Payment to agent, dealer, and distributor is something like normally sometimes you have company have a sales agent. You want to pay the commission to the sales agent. You want to pay commission to the property agent. So all this commission that you pay out, you need to issue shell bill to yourself. Huh? So they will not issue e-invoice to you, but when you make payment, you need to issue e-invoice, shell bill invoice to your company. But this payment of commission to agent only related to the third party, not your company employee. Let's say you pay commission to your company employee, company staff, which is reported in the form EA and form E. You are not required to have a e-invoice or sell bill invoice because you already reported them as your employee and reported in form E and EA. This only related to the third party. It's not your company staff, but you pay commission to them because they recommend, they introduce customer to you, and then they generate income to you. Okay, understand? This is the payment to agent, dealer, and distributor. So for the importation of goods, so you need to remember this. Give an example. Example, during the month of August, 15th of 15 August, you have a custom clearance, receive the good in custom clearance. So you clear the good and then receive in Malaysia. So where's the time you need to issue the sell bill? Is always end of the last month, next month, end of the next month. So means that this transaction happened in August. The last day to issue sell bill is always end of the next month, 30th of September. So you can issue sell bill any day, but last day will be end of the next month. Remember, end of next month. Even though it happened in 31st August, you also need to require submitted end of the next month. So when the time you need to justify what's the it's always referring to the custom clearance date when you receive the good, not your supplier invoice date. Because maybe your supplier invoice you on July, but only receive the good in August. So always referring the custom clearance date. So for the importation of services, so services is something like it's not through the customer, because some services like something like professional fee charged by overseas company, like Facebook advertisement, like Google advertisement. All this is considered one of the imported services. So imported services is when you need to issue sell bill to yourself. Is same with the importation goods, end of the next month. So example, you receive invoice on August, or you make payment in August. So when the last day to issue sell bill is end of the next 30th September. Okay, remember, always follow invoice date or invoice receipt date or payment date, whichever is early. Okay, remember these two dates, invoice date, invoice receipt date, not invoice date, invoice receipt date and payment date, whichever is early. Okay, so this is the importation good and importation services. So profit distribution, referring to the dividend distribution by unit trust and etc. Excluding the single tier dividend. Let's say company Sdn Bhd, they issue the payout dividend to the shareholder, which is tax exempted single tier dividend. You're not required to do a sell bill. So some of the dividend when they distribute out to the holder, they will submit to the test. So that one, you need to issue invoice, sell bill. Okay, so the next one is go to the e-commerce transaction. If you are having a e-commerce transaction, let's say you advertise your product, you're putting your product in the platform like Lazada or Shopee to sell your product. So you need to bear in mind on how this invoice treatment. So example, here, you as a supplier, merchant, you place your good in the Lazada or Shopee platform to sell the good to the public. So this customer, they want to buy the product from you. So they click and they want to buy. So Lazada and Shopee is the one to ask customer, purchaser, whether they requested e-invoice or not. If let's say this purchaser, they want e-invoice, e-commerce platform, you issue e-invoice to them. If the customer did not request e-invoice, then they will do the consolidated. They can submit, they just give them the normal receipt and invoice. Okay, so when whether the merchant need to issue e-invoice to the Lazada platform, so merchant no need to do anything. E-commerce platform, you issue e-invoice, sell bill e-invoice to the merchant to record the goods they sold to place to their platform to sell to the purchaser. So this means that as a merchant, if you're doing e-commerce transaction with the e-commerce platform, you're not required to do the thing. You just remember to check whether e-commerce have done the sell bill e-invoice to you or not. And then you do the matching whether the goods is correct or not. And then check with the e-commerce platform. So e-commerce platform, when they want to charge you for the additional charges of cost, they will issue an e-invoice to you. So this is how the e-invoice e-commerce transaction in the when you're handling the e-invoice. Okay, merchant not required to do anything. You just need to check the sell bill from merchant. Purchaser, you find the e-invoice, not request for the merchant. You request for the e-commerce platform. Right. So the next one is a transaction with the individual. When you have a transaction with the individual who are not conducting a business, let's say you pay a rental to individual landlord, you purchase for the individual, but this is your company expenses. This is the company purchase. How to justify, how to record as a tax allowable expenses. Okay, so you need to issue sell bill e-invoice. But of course, before you issue sell bill e-invoice, always ask the individual supplier whether they will provide e-invoice to you or not. Because maybe this individual supplier, individual customer supplier, they are doing a business and they're able to issue e-invoice to you. Let's say, yeah, they are not doing business, they are unable to issue invoice, then you just do the sell bill. Okay, one of the common issue when you're facing is related to the rental pay to the individual landlord. Because recently, income tax also given a guide to show you how the treatment to issue the sell bill. Example here, when you pay rental to individual landlord, okay, so Kama, Chen, and Sunita, these three person is the individual landlord. They have this factory rent to the best Mesra Sundaram. So rental per month is 9,000. Monthly utility bill is 1,002. And then the utility bill is still under the landlord name, not yet transferred to the tenant name. Don't remember, still got a lot of the tenant, they didn't transfer the utility bill to their name, still under the landlord name. So when this situation happen, you need to remember, when the time you issue sell bill to you, remember, you need to include this utility in the sell bill. Okay, so let's say this has 3 individual landlord. You ask the tenant, you need to ask the landlord how they want to separate out this 9,000 to each person. Maybe they have one agreement say that Tama, Chen, and Sunita have different portion. Maybe 50, 25, 25, or each party share equally. So if let's say 3 parties that agree share equally, then you need to issue 3 separate sell bill invoice, 3,000, 3,000, 3,000 to Sunita, Kama, and Chen. And then utility also separate to 3. You need to portion out accordingly to a percentage. Then issue the 3 separate self-bill invoice. Remember, so go back, if let's say your company is renting a business premises from the individual landlord, you need to do some work. Go back to check, discuss with your landlord. If let's say there are more than one person, ask them how many portion they want to issue for each person. Okay, then issue out accordingly. If let's say utility bill still under the landlord name, what you can do now, if you can go to DNB, you can go to request to change to your company name, then maybe you don't need to issue self bill under this. But if you didn't do change to your company name, then of course you need to issue self bill and together under the renter. Okay, so this is the normal company you're facing when they have a pay a renter to the individual landlord. Okay, though this is sample of self-bill invoice, as you can see, supplier name will be here. Okay, so this is your buyer name details. Okay, so this is the amount. Same with they will have a QR code to you to validate whether it's correct, valid or non-valid. Right. So then I finished the second is a self bill. Now we go to the disbursement and reimbursement. Okay, so what is disbursement? What is reimbursement? So many people very confused. How to know whether this transaction I need to issue invoice? This transaction is I don't need whether this is disbursement or this is reimbursement. So now today I share with you what is the difference between these two. Disbursement referring to out-of-pocket expenses incurred by the payer and pay to the third party on behalf of the payer by the payee. So this means that your company pay on behalf for your customer, okay? But the invoice is under your customer name, okay? Invoice under your customer name. Okay, so when the time you want to recover the payment from your customer, you're not required to issue e-invoice anymore because the e-invoice already in your customer name. You just pay on behalf. Okay, so reimbursement is different. Reimbursement is something out-of-pocket expenses incurred by yourself when you provide your business services or good to your customer, and all the invoice under your company name. So when you want to recover the expenses from your customer, of course, you need to issue invoice to them. All right. So that is the difference between disbursement and reimbursement. So I give you a further example. So example here, let's say now my company is doing a event organizer. Okay, I have a customer request me to run an event. Okay, then they say just say for me, you run the event for me for this event, and whatever the supplier invoice, okay, I need to know the supplier what's the payment that I made to the supplier. So all the invoice you need to issue back invoice to me. Okay, so your company when go to search for a supplier, you ask this supplier issue all the invoice to your customer, and then at the end you just pay on behalf for your customer. Okay, so when the time you want to request payment, you cover payment from your customer, so you no need to require issue invoice. You just issue a normal request bill. But of course, when you the e-invoice that you want to issue is only your service fee. So if you charge your service fee to your customer, of course, that one you need to issue invoice. But all the pay on behalf invoice, you're not required to issue e-invoice anymore because all the e-invoice already in your customer name. If you invoice another one e-invoice, then your customer will have double invoice, double expenses. Understand? Huh? So this is the disbursement. Reimbursement is something like, let's say you also doing a event. Okay, your customer said that, okay, you help me to run this event, but I don't want to know what are you spending. You just go to run for me, and then at the end you just give me a one invoice, e-invoice in one lump sum. Okay, so you as an event company, let's say my company is an event company, I will go to search for the supplier, and I ask the supplier all issue e-invoice to my name, to my company name. I pay to supplier. Then later on, I group all the expenses. I charge back to the customer in one lump sum in detail. What is the spending I made? And I issue invoice to my customer because previous invoice is under my name. Now I want to recover back all the payment that I made from the previous my cost to my customer. So that is the difference. First, you need to know whether when you pay on behalf of the time, this invoice is under your name, you under your customer name. All right. So that is the difference between reimbursement and disbursement. Okay. So the next one, we're going to talk about the employee perquisition and benefit. This is something related to the employee claim. Every company will facing the same issue. Your employee, your staff may make a claim, you claim back some expenses when they're spending pay on behalf of the company. So you may allow your employee to claim back whatever the expenses they're spending and then for the business purpose, right? So this how the invoice treatment for this as employee claim. So employee claim can be like telephone bill, petrol, parking, toll claim, staff refreshment, entertainment, car maintenance, club membership, gym membership, professional fee, and others, many others. So you might have others which is specific in your company. So this all employee claim how the e-invoice treatment when you want to implement e-invoice in your company. Okay, whether all your staff need to require e-invoice to be issued under company name. All right. So let's talk about it. Okay. So first, you need to remember what is the general rule. General rule is mean that employee are required to request for e-invoice to be issued under the employer name. The first general is staff will always request e-invoice to be issued under company name. This is general rule. But income tax know that sometimes it might difficult for you to get e-invoice to be issued under company name. All right. So income tax say that company allowed to proceed with the use of e-invoice issued in the name of employee or existing supporting document. You see here, e-invoice issued in the name of employee or existing supporting document. Existing supporting document means that whatever the slip like king slip, petrol slip, which is not the e-invoice, the normal invoice, you still can claim as a company expenses for your employee under your employee staff claim. But remember, if you want to allow your staff to claim the claim which is not e-invoice and normal invoice, you must state it down clearly in your employer policy. So you must prepare employee policy to tell all the staff that first try to get the e-invoice under company name. If not, you must have existing supporting or e-invoice under your name to able to claim back. So you need to list out all the claim that you allow employee to claim for business purpose in your employee policy. Okay. The third one, expenses paid to foreign supplier. Let's say example, your company have an overseas supplier, overseas customer. Your staff might need to go overseas to meet customer, to meet supplier, and this is for business purpose. So when the time they go to overseas, they have a hotel stay, hotel accommodation, food, something entertainment. So all these bill and expenses that you pay to the foreign supplier, you're not required to do any self bill. You just get back all the invoice the pay to foreign supplier as a supporting to keep and then claim to prove other expenses. Okay, so that is the exception case if you pay expenses to a foreign supplier. So remember the exception case here, you must update your employer policy. Okay, so employer policy is very important. So if your company currently do not have employee policy, go to prepare it. Okay, so you must notify your employee how to make the claim in future when invoice coming. Okay, this is the guide. This is guide for you to know. Let's say, first your staff want to claim. First of all, your staff need to know whether they want to claim back the expenses from the company or not. If let's say no, then no require invoice. Okay, but if you want to claim from the company, you must check whether e-invoice can be issued under company name. If yes, then proceed, yes. If no, then whether invoice can be issued under the employee name. If yes, then end. But if let's say they couldn't have E-invoice under employer name or employee name, do you have any existing supporting document or not? If let's say you have, then will be end. Correct. Then you will claim a tax deduction. But remember, these two conditions only applicable if requisite and benefit are clearly stated in the employer policy, and the staff must be your company employee when which you have submit the name list in your company form E and EA. Remember, must be under your company employee. It's not under your company employee. Maybe you have many company one, company B, company two, company C. Company A employee, they make a claim for company B. This is not company B employee. You cannot fulfill this because first, you are not your company B employee. So remember, you must always prove that this is your company employee. Only you can enjoy this exceptional case, right? Remember. So after finish the specific transition, now we go to the transition period because now already start the first page. How about the second page and third page? Okay, so you know that phase one customer already started 1st August. Second phase, three phase, no yet started. So first one already issue invoice, but most of their supplier maybe in phase two and phase three. So whether the phase one customer need to do the self bill or not, okay, according to the guide, the phase one customer still can use the existing invoice and receipt from the phase two and phase three customer as a supporting until fully implement. Okay, and those when you start phase one or phase two, what you need to do is you fulfill you need to comply is you must issue invoice to customer accordingly. Of course, you must follow the rule, and you must do the self bill. Go back to see the self bill criteria whether you fulfill whether the transition in your company you need to issue a self bill. Then you need to issue a self bill. Okay, so if you're under phase one or phase two, first you need to do is issue invoice and issue self bill invoice. The other thing remain until the all implementation is started on first phase three. Okay, this is during the transition period. But good news, good news. Recently, income tax come up 1 6 month interim relaxation period. So this good news, what is this mean? Okay, right. Good news is here, where phase one, phase two, and phase three, every phase taxpayer, you have a 6 month interim relaxation period. During this 6 months, you no need to issue e-invoice to your each customer. Okay, you no need to follow the rules yet. You during this 6 months, you can allow to issue consolidated invoice for all the activity and transaction. Let's say you are doing F&B, okay, you are under phase one, okay. Now you can put a notice say that my company currently not issue invoice. Even though you phase one, you can say all your customer cannot request invoice from you yet because you want to follow this interim relationship period. So what you need to do just at the end of the month, submit the consolidated invoice to income tax for all the total sales of the month. And all the month, and after end of the month, you submit the consolidated sale bill invoice for the sale bill condition. All right. Then, when you submit the consolidated invoice, you allowed to put any description. Description means that when you submit invoice, you don't need to put all the invoice number. You don't need to put who is the landlord name, who's the landlord name for individual landlord. You can just put a description. Let's say total sales of the month for August. Total sales for the month of September is enough. Okay. Or when you issue sale bill invoice to rental pay to individual landlord, you just rental pay for the month. You can total up all the rental pay to the individual and submit a consolidated sale bill. Okay. So this submission of consolidated invoice and consolidated sale bill must be submitted within 7 days after end of the month. So the due date is within 7 days after end of the month. All right. So you're not required to issue individual invoice to the buyer, even though they are requests. All right. So go back to here. So this 6-month realization period is I stated down here. If let's say you are phase one, you still can issue still can issue the console until end of July, for end of January 2025. After 1st February 2025, you need to start following the rule. Standard issue the e-invoice accordingly. Okay. Phase two, same. You have 6 months. Phase three also same. You have 6 months. So I can say if let's say some of the company supplier they follow this 6 months. So when is the actual date all the company starting implement invoice will be 1st January 2026. So at the time you can see that all the company if fulfill the requirement, you must have an e-invoice requirement accordingly. So means that your sales and supplier and your all must have an e-invoice to support. All right. So during this 6-month realization period, income tax also say that they will not penalize you. They may not issue any penalty to you because they know that this is they give you exception case. So give you a try. So during this 6 months, if let's say first and second month you already try and you say that third month onward I want to start, can you can start only anytime during this 6 months. Once you start, then you need to follow. So if let's say actually, if let's say your company is already started, I will advise you to follow the rule because during this 6 months, income tax will not penalize you if you're doing wrongly. So just try it within this 6 months, try an error, then only you know what is the mistake, what the error may be facing by you when you issue invoice. Then after the 6 months, then you know already this is a normally mistake. They will know they will skip all the mistake and prevent for the penalty for the income tax. Right? So any benefit, if let's say I don't want to adopt this 6 months, I want to start immediately, follow my timeline, you can immediately. And income tax give you an incentive, give you some of the good news. If you start immediately following your set timeline, whatever the ICT plus equipment that you purchase, you can claim in capital allowances. Previously, it's 3 years to claim. Now you can allow you to 2 years to claim back the ICT equipment. So shorten the time for you to claim back the ICT equipment on the CA capital allowances. So there is the benefit if you implement on the set timeline. All right. So what is the penalty? If let's say I doing wrong, I submit wrong, is there any penalty? If I did not submit e-invoice, did I have any penalty? Yes. Where is the penalty for the non-compliant? Failure to enter and submit invoice. Failure of supply recipient in the case of self-bill. This means if you issue self-bill e-invoice, you do not have a supporting to support this self-bill, there's no penalty. Failure to supply and submit consolidated invoice. The penalty here is a fine or not penalty not less than 200 or no more than 20,000 imprisonment not exceeding 6 months. This penalty is not one time. It can be by transaction. Remember, it can be by transaction. So you have to remember the penalty can be by transaction, not the 1 year. Okay. So always be careful when you're. So that's why I say if if your company is ready, so go for the immediate adopt. No need to choose because no need to choose the 6 month recession period because during this 6 months, income say they will not issue, they will penalty you. So you have a time to adopt, time to uh, adopt how to submit the invoice, and you could know how to error, you can reduce the error and mistake. Okay, so I have sharing you some of the invoice implementation guide to you. Then your company can know how to implement in your company. So example, billing department. Billing department, you need to understand what's the requirement of invoice, the 55 field, purpose of credit note, debit note, and refund note, when to use it. Okay, collection of customer information is very important. You need to start collect your customer information for you to issue invoice. Like TIN number, new SSN number, address is correct, contact number is correct, phone number is correct. So you need to make sure everything is correct. Then before you start issuing invoice. So now first page already start. Second page, another 2 more months. Okay, 3 more months. So it's the time to now for you to start collecting the information now to key in your software. So next time you want to issue invoice, it's easier for you. Communicate with the client regarding the transition period. Let's say your customer say, I want the e-invoice from you. So you can tell to them, I'm not on the first page, I'm not the first second. Are you on the first page 3? Okay. Understand the preparation of consolidated invoice. So you need to know whether your company required to console, it can do the console or cannot do the console. Okay. When the time to submit the console. Okay. Prepare to handle the post-transaction request for the customer after issue consolidated invoice. This means here, if your company is doing, you can allow you to issue console after end of the month. So you need to inform customer, yeah, they are not required, they are not allowed to request invoice anymore. Okay. Health department, what they need to do, ensure the e-invoice data generated by the billing department is compliant. Okay, so validate checking the e-invoice, verify the process, check the e-invoice whether it's a valid or not valid e-invoice. Understand the requirement of sell bill, when the time you need to do the sell bill, verify authentic accuracy of e-invoice. So before you make payment to supplier, always make sure that you have received e-invoice and this is valid invoice. Okay, right. So this is a process you might need to go through. So the last HR. Okay, HR department also need to be involved because HR department is the one to update the company policy and communicate the policy to the staff, how they make the claim. Okay, so HR department need to implement a new company policy to all the department, tell the staff how to make the claim, in what condition they can claim the expenses from the company. Must be under company name, employee name, or existing supporting document enough. So you need to draft out the company policy. All right. So that is the guideline for you to for each department to show. All right. So actually, I finished my session on the e-invoice. This is my name card, and my company is KSU and KSU Taxation Services. My company is located in Bukit Jalil. Okay, I'm the tax manager here. Our service providing audit, income tax, SST, e-invoice advisory. So if you have any inquiry, want to have implementation of e-invoice in your company or income tax, you can always contact me and you can email to me, either this simon@cashflow.com, email to test@cashflow.com. If you have any question after this seminar you want to ask, you can always email to me or WhatsApp to me. Okay, so we can screenshot this one and then keep in your record. All right. Okay, everyone, thank you for today's seminar. So this is my today's seminar sharing to you. Thank you for all.
Thank you, Mr. Samanyan. And there's a few questions in the text chat box. Can
Right,
you
no problem.
Okay.
Okay, I will see and answer it. Okay. Okay, first is customer walk in and billing under cashier's noting number. What can we do? So you just use the generating number that I showed to you just now. This number. Okay. If non-listed company, if we declare dividend to our shareholder, do we need not require because dividend issue to a non-listed company is considered a tax exempted dividend. So it's not it's exempted, it's not required to issue sell bill. If my landlord refuse to give me TIN number, same, you use the general TIN number. As long as your landlord giving you the IC number will be enough. Because income tax can use the IC number to check whether they are they to know their taxpayer. Okay. Our company import goods from foreign supplier. Stock, current, custom, and delivery all complete by agent. Foreign supplier will provide us with the BI invoice. Then we hand it over to the bank process. For the above transaction, shall we open sell bill? We need to request the number for the foreign supplier. So foreign supplier, most of the foreign supplier, they did not have a STIN number. So you can always use the general TIN number. Okay, as long as you have custom document to prove, then will be enough. All right. The deadline to submit the e-invoice within 1 month after receiving the good, right? So yes, when you receive the good in this month, let's say you receive the good in August, so you have next month will be the 1 month period for you to submit the consolidated the sell bill invoice, right? What else should we pay attention when placing a sell bill? So sell bill, okay, you need to check the list whether only those 8 items you are allowed to issue sell bill. No, not every transaction can issue sell bill. So you need to understand So check carefully whether you fall under this criteria to issue the self-bill invoice. Then if let's say TIN number don't have, then use the general TIN number. Okay. Regarding the bank charges, we need to require each transaction charges invoice with bank. Okay, this one we need to wait. Actually, the bank charges from the bank, I think they will later on will issue invoice to you for the list of the bank charges. But like something like previous GST time, you remember during GST era, when the bank issue a tax invoice for the bank charges, they will either give you a bank charges tax invoice, or they consider the bank statement itself is a tax invoice. So I think maybe this time same. Either bank statement consider is an invoice, or they give you another e-invoice for the list of the bank charges. For retail, do we need to issue self-bill rental utility, or can request invoice from the shopping mall? Okay, if you rent from the shopping mall, because you pay to the businesses. So shopping mall is a company, they will issue e-invoice to you. So you no need to issue self-bill. Self-bill for rental only related to individual. Remember, individual. Because individual, they are not doing business. So only the payment rental of utility to the individual landlord, then only you use self-bill. Yes. How to treatment for the refundable, non-refundable? Okay. Refundable deposit is something you can refund back to your customer. So when the time you receive a refundable deposit, so you're not requesting to issue invoice to your customer because this is not your sales. This is not income. It's just a refundable. So you can just issue a normal receipt to your customer. But if let's say this is non-refundable deposit, when the time you receive, this may be considered as part of your sales, part of your advance receipt. So the time when you receive, you need to issue invoice. So that is the difference. Okay. About the wages foreign worker, but not under the company name. How to solve? Okay. Payment of subcon wages to the foreign worker. This is common issue in the construction company, and some of the company they're paying wages to the subcon wages, which is foreign worker. This foreign worker is individual. They are not doing actually in if referring to a guy when they provide subcon service to you, they actually is considered doing business consider conduct the business by referring to a guide that's supposedly to issue invoice to you. You are not allowed to issue invoice. If you read carefully in the income tax FAQ and income tax guide, this type of subcon measures they consider provide service to you. You're not required, you're not allowed to issue self-bill. Until today, I think there's no other solution for you because this foreign worker, then they will not going to issue invoice to you because they don't know how to use, they don't know how to issue. So current current situation is maybe what you need to can do is you just treat it as an individual supplier, issue self-bill to the for the transaction. But you need to bear in mind because this individual subcon wages foreign worker, they are not reporting any income tax in Malaysia. Okay, so if you keep paying subcon fee to this foreign worker and the amount is very big and can be more than taxable amount, then you need to bear in mind. Income tax may one day come to find you. Hey, who is this person? Because that person, they did not declare any income tax. And then foreign worker, the income tax, they not easily to find them. So you need to bear in mind. This will be something related to income tax issue. But of course, for e-invoice, currently no other treatment. So maybe you can issue e-invoice. The only method to issue invoice to support is your company expenses. Okay. Do we need to issue self-bill e-invoice for promoter and salesman? Okay, if the promoter and salesman commissions is under your company employee, you're reporting under your company form E in year, then no need to do anything because no need to issue self-bill. Self-bill is only dealing with the agent, which is party, not your company staff. Okay? Remember, only third party. But whatever you reported under your form E and form EA, under your employee, not required to do anything. what allowances you pay to them also not required to pay to anything because everything you reported in your form E and EA. Okay, only those for third party. So I think no more question or anything.